Good evening and welcome to Art on the Line this evening. I'm very excited and very pleased to be able to talk tonight with the next phase or the next generation, passing the baton, if you will, to the next generation of administrators and artists with Black Artists of DC. And I'm just really grateful that I've been with the organization since the very beginning. Very quickly, what I mean by the very beginning, my friend Viola Leak, who was a co-founder, used to tell me on the telephone she was finishing up food and hurrying up to get to the meeting with herself, Aziza, over to Michael Platt's. I think the co-founders were Viola Burley Leak, Aziza, and Planta Villar. I think that's Planta's last name. Later, I became more active with Amber Robles Gordon when she was the president, and was always appreciative when I was, as a member of the Black Artists of DC, of the caliber and level of the artists that belonged to the organization and showed in exhibitions. It was just so very national. How should I say this? So yes, this is a city, DC, but the work was at a very high and continues to be at a very high level. Then as a former president of BADC, I backed into the position as curator, was nurtured by the organization, creating exhibitions and programs, and also by my employer, Busboys and Poets, who also has sealed my identity as a curator. Later with BADC, Russell Simmons succeeded me as president and continued nurturing the organization. And then COVID hit, and things changed, and now we're in the I call it the re-volution, the news cycle. And it brings us to a new administration with Zoma Wallace as president and Zsudayka and Nzinga Terrell, both women of distinction and promise, whose vision will take the organization very far. So let's bring up Zoma and the whole BADC folk, that the founders, the artists, Daniel, the archivist. So we'll talk more about the origins and, well, just so much more, the origins and vision and so much more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us and inviting us to be with you and creating a platform and sharing the platform for us to have these discussions. And I was saying to you earlier that as a past president of BADC, past president of BADC, you've left behind some shoes for us to step into, to grow out of, and give to the next as well. So thank you. And before we actually begin this conversation, we want to thank and give recognition to our former presidents. And there is Stan Squirewell and Amber Robles Gordon, Juliet Madison, Rhodes Dyson, and Russell Simmons. And we're very grateful for you and everyone who served on their administrations as well. So I thought that this we can start this night with of course it's not working because I need it to. Okay, now we got this. Now I'm not seeing it though.
There it is.
There it is. Great. So I thought that this picture was the perfect place for us to start because it is in a home space of clearly an artist and member of the Black Artists of DC. And the essence of BADC is family and is communion and fellowship and art. And so here you see Lillian Thomas Burwell, who is a renowned sculptor, painter, amazing superhuman individual, talking to the group about her career. But also, I believe that evening was part of a greater critique shared. And I'll give you some foreshadowing. If you look behind her hand, you'll see a sculpture of a Sankofa bird. And Zsudayka and I, when we first met and first took on these roles in March, we agreed that this year is the year of Sankofa. And it behooves us to go and look back at what was done before so that we can map out a path forward that's respectful. So I'd like to ask Aziza Gibson-Hunter, our co-founder, to tell us about your work.
Well, hello. Well, we started BADC because Viola, Leek, and Planter Reader and myself, we felt as if we had a Black arts community here in Washington, D.C., but it needed a little glue. And what could bring us together? And Viola said, I know what, let's invite some artists over to my house and everybody will bring some food, a piece of art, and some good vibes. And we'll come together and talk about our art and break bread. And we did it, and the artists came and we shared our art, we broke our bread, we talked about our work, how we could improve it. And it was a wonderful, we were all just like, wow, this is great. And Platt says, Michael Platt, he says, okay, this was great. Like, when do we do this again? And that really was the birth of Black Artists of DC. At that point, we had no name for ourselves. We would move from one place to another place in the city. We were all over in different venues, bringing our art and sharing. And it was just a beautiful thing. And these were artists that lived in DC, were educated in DC, worked in DC, and we were also, for it to be, we called it then transgenerational. We wanted it to be seasoned artists, novices, emerging artists, mid-career artists, all together there, sharing and reinforcing one another.
In education and educating.
Yes, well, I think we were together around 5 years, and we had our first exhibition. It was titled Found, and it was at the Graham Collection Gallery and on 12th Street. And at that point, we started developing a educational component. And with that, we had speakers. Some of the speakers that came and spoke with us were Renee Stout, Sam Gilliam, Kerry James Marshall. And then we had people that were in different aspects of the art industry, such as Alva Binder, who is a appraiser, came and helped us to understand that whole aspect of art. And we had something called a summer bridge program where we had workshops for artists in different things that we asked our population, what were they interested in learning about? And we would have workshops in those areas. And we also helped young people to develop their portfolios for undergraduate school and graduate school, and acted as a feeder for the Corcoran, Howard University, and MICA. And we would make sure we would list opportunities. We had a daily email that would come to all the people that attended meetings that would have information about exhibits, opportunities, calls, residencies, and that kind of thing. So we did a lot of really wonderful work in that group.
And that listserv was something that you did, Aziza, every day. And it was wonderful information. Wonderful.
Yeah, I got so that I woke up in the morning and the first thing I did was to put 2 hours in searching for things, and we did that. Well, we did that for like 13 years. We've been around for 21 years now.
Oh my goodness, mature.
21 years.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that we're welcoming Zoma and Zsudayka to take the helm. They are two gifted, intelligent Black women who will help us to further develop our community. It's really, artists cannot fully develop themselves without community. And you can
so much.
The history of art, and always there's community there to support, to push, to inspire artists to be excellent, and that's what we strive to do.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of excellence, just because we are on this picture of some excellent artists and individuals, if you can speak to the gentleman on either end, you know, who we recently lost, but they were a star, you know, of excellence that we follow.
Well, Michael Platt is, I don't know, to the left there, a printmaker, a incredible draftsman as far as drawing is concerned. He was definitely, he would just come in a meeting with something and it would just be electric in there.
Yeah.
Everyone
Magic.
Run back to their studios to get to work when he came in. Harley was a photographer. He photographed many of our works in the group so that we could go after residencies, so that we could apply for grants. And he himself, he started to develop his own work while he was there. When he began, he was primarily thinking in terms of himself being a photographer to service the group. Yeah. And he did so much for us. And then he started developing his own work. Oh yeah, this is the studio of Michael Platt. He had a series that he did where he would wrap Black women in gauze, and he would photograph them. And I mean, the images are absolutely exquisite. And I'm hoping that you can find some of his work online so that you can see it. He's deceased now. Yes.
Did he explain why you want him wrapped in gauze?
You know, I know.
I think of a veil or.
Yes, I was getting ready to say Platt always had one foot on this plane and one foot with the ancestors. And he was able to go back and forth and bring them together. And he did so through his images.
And also it's about layering and texture, because he didn't speak to me about the gauze in particular, but there was a jute material that he thought was the coolest, that, you know, just because of its texture and because of its translucency and because of the relationship symbolically of our people to those materials, that sometimes was something that was a motivating factor in pulling these fabrics that gave these more spiritual, ephemeral figures feeling.
I love it.
So your work is kind of
yes. Well, now I started out as a figurative artist, and I moved to slowly made the transition to abstraction. A lot of my work, I would say that for the last 15 years, my work has dealt with the issues of like containment as opposed to sovereignty and agency. So I'm always thinking about freedom. And so these pieces, if you notice, the perimeter of them is jagged and pushing out. For me, that is, I'm reaching for this concept of boundlessness. And much of my work, you will see, it started out with figures pushing and around boxes or too big for boxes, trying to eliminate boxes. And now what is happening is the pieces themselves. I'm starting this work is from 2020, and so do you have a piece where you can kind of see there you go. So what I'm doing now is I'm thinking in terms of the gallery as being the white box, the containment that happens. It's a metaphor for the restrictions that are placed on Black body, Black mind, Black spirit, and how do these pieces are pushing out. They're trying to exit the white box, and yes, you can see there.
The people could fly, right?
The space, and I'm thinking in terms of wanting to exit this space where we are restricted, where we are not able to fully realize our cultural selves, and where the potential that lies within us. I want to see us at a point where in a space, in a free space where that can be fully realized. And so I use in this case, I use the actual gallery as the box now that the pieces are moving out of.
Those are beautiful.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that BADC is, the idea of BADC is to develop a community, a space, a safe space, to learn about the different aspects of the art industrial complex, because we need to understand that, a space where we can grow, a space where we can inspire one another, and a space where we can encourage excellence. Artists need community.
So I just want to add, if people that are watching have questions, please feel free to submit questions so that we can answer them. All right. Back to Zoma.
Yeah. Well, it's actually back to Mr. Brooking, Daniel Brooking,
Okay.
archivist and founder of Djembe.
Okay. This, of course, is with Andrea Roan. One of her assistants had seen information about our exhibition at PEPCO and told Andrea about it, and she decided to come down and check us out. So the curator, Carolyn Goodrich, called some of the artists, and we came down to meet Andrea and took her around the studio and just explained to her, what the art was about. They collected a great deal of information and they put it online that evening on WUSA 9. So people got a chance to see more about Black artists of DC.
And this is your work.
Okay, this is one of my pieces. As I've told some other students, my mantra is, I wonder what would happen if. And I decided that I remember having someone say, what is the largest organ on the body? Mm-hmm. And when you ask a man that, he has a completely different idea than what you think. Mm-hmm. So the largest organ is the skin. And I decided to photograph the skin and then manipulate those digital photographs to create art. So these are from digital images of my skin.
And you have some shibori.
This is shibori. Audrey Brown taught me shibori.
BADC member and artist.
BADC member, and I just loved it. I just loved it. Back in the day, I did tie-dye, and this was a little more than that, because besides tying the fabric, you also stitched it and folded it, and then in some cases putting it between blocks of wood to dye it.
Yeah.
And this was dyed with the spice turmeric.
Mm.
And I just loved it. And she was so pleased with my work that she asked me to teach it to the other students. So I enjoyed that.
I also like how what you got it hung on. You know,
I'm telling you.
And these two pieces are some of my later works. I've always loved color and light and the absence of light. What do you see? The piece on the left, Riot, in fact, that's up at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. What I like about their work is when you are shipping work from the outside, you can't ship a cardboard box. You have to have a wooden box. So at the first time I did that, I said, well, I can't make a wooden box. And I went to Tom Gomillion, and he said, yes, you can. And he showed me what he had done. And I said, oh, I can do that. So I've been making the wooden boxes to ship up to them whenever my work was accepted. And this piece is 36 by 42, I believe. But it's the sublimation process. And that's ink under heat and pressure until it binds with aluminum substrate. And it just makes the colors just boom.
Yeah.
The other piece is Hope, Light Through My Window. And I was actually laying down on the couch and saw this pattern of light come through the blinds. And it struck me. I said, I can do something with that. So I love this particular process. The colors just are fantastic.
In person, they just dance.
Now, with djembe, when we first started djembe, I decided that we would do a collection of solely of the works of Black artists of DC. And then I thought, we have other people who have, current members, but we've had other people who were past members, and we have associates. And it is good for people to see not only our work, but with whom we have exhibited.
Right.
And so I started collecting information. And sometimes I really have to go looking for the information. But it's put out annually and sent around to repositories around the country.
And it follows in this tradition of the self-publications that BADC had a number of iterations with doing. And it helps to build the provenance legacy of all of these artists, writers, curators that need to be documented, where they were, who they were working with, like you said, what galleries and museums were showing their work, so that, in future,
yes, documentation is more important than just historical information. How many artists out there are living in a vacuum?
Yeah.
By themselves, and no one knows their work. Sometimes the work is not known until they leave this realm. Yeah. You've got to have a history of that work.
Very, very true. So Gloria Kirk. Isn't that a great picture she took?
Yeah.
And these are some other images we pulled from djembe. So if you want to kind of tell us some more about them.
Living Life Like It's Golden. This was at Bowie State, and this was the artist talk. And so, and we got a chance to meet some of the students as well and give them information. And one of the things that I remember telling the student, if you send your work to a gallery and they don't accept your work, that doesn't mean your work is bad. They have a clientele. And so they're looking for certain things. So what you have to do is beforehand, check out that gallery, that museum, go to their exhibitions, go to their openings, see who's there, introduce yourself, let them know who you are so that they will be familiar with you when that work comes in.
Yes.
And this is so very important to have these conversations. And as I said, these ongoing at the monthly meetings, the critiques, Daniel was sharing information, James Brown, so many of the artists would share. Zoma came and critiqued, Aziza, Akili. I mean, just the wisdom of the collective has been so powerful.
Yeah, this was at Art DC, and that was considered the first contemporary art fair in DC. And we had a booth, and with images of Black artists of DC in the booth. Well, while we were there, we had some folks from the Life Center, and they asked us to come out and do an exhibition.
Yeah.
And those are the images on the left side. This was in Iowa. And neither of us, Amber went with me, neither of us had been to Iowa before. We didn't know what we would walk into, but it was fantastic. We had a wonderful time, and they had a chance to see what we were doing on this end.
Another art fair.
This is Good Bread Alley. And the gentleman, Marvin Weeks, invited us to exhibit. And we said, yes, we're going to do this. We are going to do this. So 24 artists were chosen. Everybody contribute funds. We said, now this is going to be very expensive to try to ship this. So Stan Squirewell said, well, I can drive. So he got a truck. I think it belonged to a relative. We packed up our art, and Stan and I think another young man. Okay. And they drove the work. They drove the work down there.
That's right.
Down to Miami.
I didn't hear the name other than Stan.
Oh,
Miles
Bunbury.
Okay.
Yes. So we had a chance to do that as well. So the whole point is, as you say, it's like a family. We are working together to support each other. And one of the things that I tell the young people when they are in an exhibition, particularly if they're in a particular organization, learn something about the work of your other members as well.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to say something about them and or direct people to them. And that's part of the presentation process. Yeah. And this was one of the swap meets. And this was the first one I had ever been to. I had never heard of anything like this, and it was wonderful.
Explain what a swap meet is.
You brought in your works, pieces that you no longer use, equipment, paint, chalk, whatever. And you left it there for someone else who might need it. And you picked up whatever you needed. And so we had books, we had paint, we had canvases, pastel, oil, everything. And everyone got a chance to, maybe they wanted to try something and they didn't have the supplies or didn't have the money. And there it was, free for the taking. Nobody was charged anything.
So our critiquing tradition is here. If you want to say a few words about Alec and Aldua.
Well, with the critiques, the main thing to understand is nobody's trying to destroy your ego. We are here to give you support. We are here to show you what we see, what we think you can do better. And perhaps if you don't know how to do something, there's someone in the group who can teach you.
Yeah.
And so the whole point is support. And we're always, when you come to the critique, you don't know what you're going to see. Oh my God, there may be so many beautiful things. You want to know, oh my God, how did you do that? Show me how you did that.
Yeah.
And that's why we would have the art sessions as well, the summer bridge programs, to teach people skills that they didn't have.
Including how to price your work, which is
Yes, and that was with the E.J. Montgomery, and that was at the Jackson Gallery.
Yeah,
and we went there because some of us didn't know how to price our works. When I showed her one of my pieces, she felt that I didn't price it enough. She felt it was underpriced. Well, you know, sometimes you don't know the value of your own work, and somebody has to tell you. And so I was very pleased, and she told me to raise the price. I did, and sold the work.
Other experts coming to visit and
yes,
Look at AM. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, we had a fabulous meeting there. Carrie was fabulous, and I think for some of our young people that were there at that time, he set the tone for their careers after that, the discipline of their careers, because he spoke of that. And I mean, we had wonderful people. I'm trying to see. Let me see. We had. Oh yeah, we had. There were just all kinds of people that came to visit us.
Yeah. I think that especially that presentation on HBO when he talked about his work, I think it was so very strong, and you also saw his development from working at this, from being at artist in residence at the Studio Museum of Harlem, to his and the growth. So, and I think that again, artists. One of the things that Daniel in his conversation is talking about training. Artists, and I'm learning this too, artists, we have to see a path, you know. We start here and then we move to another level, and it's a continuation. It may not be a straight path, it may be kind of zigzag, but you see growth, you see yourself, and I think that was when I watched I didn't know some of the information about him. So I was very pleased to learn more about him. And I also want to say something, because I know we just went about AM. AM is also deceased, and AM curated a show, what was it, 5 by 5? And she had 5. She had Michael Platt, Stan Squirewell, Larry Cook.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to figure out who the other people were that she had. There were poetry. She had a very powerful program and public art. A huge piece of Michael's that was in Southeast.
Yes.
And her writing, her art writing was prolific.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, Aziza, that you're always saying is that people have to write about this artwork. And she did. She is dearly missed. Dearly missed. Absolutely. Her voice is dearly missed.
Absolutely.
This is a photograph at UMB. What is that?
UMBC?
Yes, UMBC. Eric Keys's gallery. Curly was having I think it was a solo exhibition that he had, a retrospective exhibition, and that's one of the things we encourage encourage our folks to come out. And so there's lots of our members that are standing there with Curly and Professor Coleman. Oh my goodness. And I see, again, Mike Platt back there, and Mr. Gilliam, who has been a great inspiration to the organization. I'm sorry.
Dr. Driscoll in the center.
Oh yeah, Dr.
Oh,
Driscoll.
right.
Oh my gosh, I should have my glasses on. Dr. Driscoll, oh my goodness, yes. Just a humble, intelligent,
Southern gentleman.
intelligent, stand your ground. I will not be moved when he had that stature when he spoke about our work, and many times he would be in situations where people did not respect our work, but he demanded the respect for our people's work. And so it was a great honor to be there with him. Mm-hmm.
Zsudayka.
Yes.
Well, hello. I'm the new kid on the block. And so I wanted to, for people who are not familiar with me, give a little bit of background as to like who I am and where I came from. I am a fine artist from Aurora, Colorado, which is a suburb just outside of Denver, kind of like Silver Springs is to DC. And I started out, I was a kind of a secret artist drawing my pictures, and I was a poet. I was really semi-famous on the spoken word scene. So I was traveling around when there was a big uplifting of poetry that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. I was in that mix. And so I was kind of drawing on the side, but I was really well known for my poetry. And I started to interact in Denver with their Black art collective, which is called the Sankofa Arts Collective. So put a pin in that, because here we are with our Sankofa again, and with this coming back full circle. And Sankofa is a really similar organization in terms of it being very strong with elders interacting with the youth. And so, this is a picture of Dawn Williams Boyd, Helen Littlejohn, and Rochelle Johnson, who are all on the museum circuit at this point. At that time, I think they were just starting to emerge, but now, especially Dawn Williams Boyd is pretty well known for her quilt work. And these were the women who kind of took me in. So I'll never forget that you had to go through a critique to get in, and they were like, your work is terrible, but it's going to be amazing if you keep working on it. And, so they took me in. And because of that, I started a Black Arts Festival in Aurora. So at that time in Colorado, Denver had the biggest Black Arts Festival in the country, oddly enough. But it was really expensive, and it had gotten so big that the focus was on international Black art. So you got a lot of African artists, you got a lot of really big name artists, and it was kind of priced out and shutting out the local Black artists. So I had this idea. I think I was like 20, 21, and I was like, I'm going to just start a Black Arts Festival. And at originally it was supposed to be like a block party, kind of a little thing at a park. And when I was filling out the permits, Aurora had just built the MLK library, and they had just built this big plaza around it. It had electricity on site and everything set up. And they were like, please do something at this plaza and we'll let you have it for free. And so, I went to the art collective and I was like, hey, I'm having this festival. Can you guys come and be in the festival? It's really inexpensive. And so there were 3 or 4 artists who said, yeah, we'll support you. We'll come out. We'll set up. And so the first day, we had it. And it was a 2-day festival, and it went really well the first day. And so the next day they called the other members of the art collective, and they all just showed up and set up these really beautiful displays. And then the next year, the Sankofa Arts Collective provided all of the art for my festival. And so it was a really beautiful experience for me, being kind of swept up from the elders and guided from the elders. And there were things that I learned from them about how to have these type of events and how to showcase Black art, and the importance of showcasing Black art, and the power that we have in showcasing Black art, that really defined who I was going to become as an artist. They also made me show my work at this event, and I hadn't shown work before, but one of the vendors didn't show up, and they were like, put your stuff in the space, and I became an artist from that point on. So I've been in DC for about 10 years now, and me and my husband run a youth art competition every year that we do at PepCo. That is a citywide call for art, addressing civility in the communities, and we ask youth to submit their art and schools to submit their art. I've done art programming and curriculum development with PG Museum, Suitland High School, different middle schools throughout the area. And so these are some images of, this is a project that the kids at Suitland and I can't remember the name of this middle school in Brandywine, but they had a program that the theme was gentrification, and the artists had to come in and write a curriculum to kind of teach the kids what gentrification is and what gentrification means, and then they had to display it through the art. So I have a large background in zero-based art programming and education in arts and education in art programming. And most recently, I got the curatorial grant from the DC Commission of the Arts, where I put together a show called Distance Learning, where we had 21 DC area art teachers who showcased work that they made in the year 2020, or that addressed some of the emotions that they experienced in 2020. I was really excited about this show because it was an opportunity to put Black artists in the forefront without necessarily having to say Black artists. And so 20 of the 21 artists that were in the show were Black, and some of them, it was their first time showing. And so, you know, it was another opportunity to really highlight the power of art in our culture and the power of art in our community, and then open up the audience that, you know, we're able to show our artwork to and that we're able to engage with. So I am really excited to have been asked to take on this role as vice president. I've been loosely involved with VADC for a couple of years now. So I've shown in a couple of the group shows and kind of been around a little bit. I hadn't been able to be as involved as I wanted to because I had back-to-back babies, and then my husband is a pastor, so a lot of times on Sundays we're in church, and so, you know, I'm learning the history, and in respecting the history, like as I'm envisioning the future, and I'm envisioning the ways that, you know, we move forward, and thinking about what is it that I can bring to this organization, and what is it that I can do with this community and this family. And I think that for me, if I had to say three things that were like at the top of my priority list, the first would be continuing the legacy of investing in youth, and the ways in which, you know, like as you've seen from the earlier slides, the ways in which we're able to interact with young people, and the ways that we bring in young people and we build careers and we build identities by how we're interacting and the types of shows we're having. I think that's super important. Secondly, I am really into the idea of marketplace. I think that especially with the internet and with social media, there's a lot of different diverse ways for artists to make a living while they're trying to get to the point where they're having the breakthrough. And even after you're having the breakthrough, having multiple streams of income through your art is kind of something that I've become a master at, because I'm running me and my husband's business. And so, you know, we have been able to like diversify, and we have a merchandise line and like all these other little elements. But, you know, when I'm looking at the talent that's in our group and in our community, I really want to think about ways that we can tap into each other, and ways that we can pour into each other, and supporting each other with building our branding and building the things that we're building. So on the last slide, the lady who's featured is a sister. She's out of Atlanta, but she literally just started like a print on demand with her art designs, and then she got picked up by Ford and won this big competition, and like, so now she has her designs and her artwork all over. So just really thinking about how to nurture these different relationships. And then the third thing, if we go back a slide, the third thing is really focusing on how we use social media. I am a bit of a social media nerd. Like that's really how we've had breakthroughs in our art career. And especially with things changing over the last year, like really thinking about how to bring cohesive technology and how to use technology for us to, again, support each other and really highlight our members and highlight the work of our members and help expand the reach of our members. Because I think that each of us is building our own network, but when we combine that network, it's an opportunity to really showcase one another's work on a much higher level. And so those are like my top 3 priorities. And so on the next slide is one of my favorite pictures. And I feel like this picture, and I added it because I feel like it encompasses exactly the vision I have when I think about like, what is growth and how do we move forward? And we're standing on top of such amazing history and such amazing foundation. And it's like, it's an honor to be able to move that forward, but then thinking about like, what does that look like? And what does that feel like? And to me, I envision exactly what's in this image, which is, this is a picture of a group of us. We're all fiber artists, different generations, members of BADC, and we're at Greg Scott's exhibition at the Children's Hospital. You know, he runs that program. And so we are supporting each other on multiple levels and encouraging each other on multiple levels in this intergenerational conversation that is consistently happening and the lending of resources that's consistently happening. And so when I first met Zoma, it was crazy to me because we were talking about, you know, this is the year of Sankofa. This is the year of Sankofa. And so I want to close with the Sankofa bird, because I feel like everybody is kind of coming full circle in their journeys. You know, like we all had a space that we started when we were working with Black arts organizations, and the richness of those organizations really grew us into the people that we are today. And the organizations continue to water us and continue to put into us and pour into us. And we, of course, from that then have the opportunity to pour out or to overflow. And so I'm very, very excited about this opportunity to come full circle and to return to my history so that we can move forward into the future.
Very beautifully said. May I say, and speaking of full circle, one of the first exhibitions I worked on at Busboys and Poets was an exhibition at 14th and V. Do you remember doing some work at Busboys and Poets at 14th and V?
Yes.
What is that? 8 years ago.
Yes. And I had, you know, what's crazy about that is I had just gotten here, and there was another sister who was like kind of trying to help get some art up, and you were coming in right at that time. And so, you know, you were the one who was really instrumental in like, get the work here, put the work here. And for me, you know, that was one of the first times that I showed. And so it was a huge opportunity for me. And so, you know, and then to continue to be able to work with you and to work with others, you know, it really shows the importance of these type of organizations. And it really shows the importance of like when we place one another in certain positions and we reach back, how much that helps. Like that is revolution, really, is taking a position and then reaching back.
I think several things have really been brought up, and I know Zoma is has something to say as well, because Zoma is always profound. But there have been several things. I think the focus on the elders that has been brought up, and the wisdom that is brought through generations, the excellence, the djembe, the documentation of the art, the critiques. And then I think some of the things that you just said about the marketing, about the youth, there are so many, the activities that have gone on. What was it? You brought things, Daniel, and took something away. What was that called?
Brought things?
Swap meet.
Oh, the swaps. The
swap meet. Those are such rich experiences.
Oh, yes.
And it's just, and as I said, there's the love that is in this organization, the group, you know, it can't help but embrace and uplift and encourage growth by those that are part of the organization.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the willingness to pass down. I think that that's one of the things, as I'm learning the history, hearing like there's been multiple presidents, and each president, each staff brought these things to the table. And really, when you have an organization that's willing to do that, that's willing to say, you know, I'm bringing X, Y, and Z, and when I've done that, I will move aside and allow everybody else. It's just a really beautiful synergy. It's a beautiful flow.
If there are questions from the audience, we're open to taking them. I have a couple of questions I'm going to add, and listening and being a part of the journey of establishing BADC, what has it taught you all about life, yourself, and art? Who wants to start off answering that?
Well, when I first started, I really didn't know what I was going to do with my art. I had certain training, but I really didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I heard about the Black Artists of DC, I believe from James Brown in 2005. And I attended some of the meetings, and it was so positive. And I joined in 2006. Now, up until that point, I was in the arts. I was in writing, poetry, acting, but I was not part of a art group. I was not around visual artists as such. Being around those artists, just my creativity just bloomed. You've got so many different people with so many different skills, and there's a cross-fertilization. And then you feel a part of a body. You're not by yourself anymore. You have people there to support you and to give you ideas and to open up resources for you. So it was a wonderful situation. And ever since then, my art has bloomed, and I'm doing, you know, more and more and trying many different things for you.
Who else wants to respond to that?
So wonderful.
Well, I'm thinking. I think BADC for me is it has taught me to never underestimate individuals. We would open up our doors to those meetings. We literally had no idea what would walk in there. And I mean, sometimes the work would just be breathtaking. You're like, where did this person come from? And then we had a gentleman that came one time that was he had just gotten out of prison, and he bought his artwork. And it was just amazing. And then to watch the group give him accolades for what he did, gave him suggestions for how to stretch it and grow it, was just beautiful. It taught me a lot about how wonderful human beings can be, you know, in a world where a lot of times we see the worst of ourselves. I think in that organization, many, many times, I saw the best of what human beings could be.
Mm-hmm. True that. Okay, so the next question is aesthetics or politics? I love this question.
But wait, we have Zoma. I think your set of slides really answers the last question as well.
It does. Thank you very much. I'm going to share it again real quick. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. That answers the last question. You mean the establishing, what is it taught you about yourself? Oh, that's, we haven't done Zoma. I'm sorry.
All right, it was cool. So it really does answer your question, because BADC was and is the training ground that, like you said about your own self, it put me in the place professionally that I am here today. But not only professionally, but it brought forward some of the things that I need to consider as a Black woman, as a Black artist, how I'm moving in the space, how certain gazes are operating around us, and how we need to move through certain apparatuses of power in this art thing. So Miss Hunter was one of those advocates. As a young person, I came into BADC when I came back to DC from after graduating from college. So I was entering into the MFA program at Howard. It was about 2005 is when I entered BADC at the same time, because literally I had no clue where to go, what to do. And so she took me in, and everyone really embraced me and showed me various avenues that I could go in. And Harley Little and Michael Platt took me into their studios and said, "You got something." They really, really, nurtured me and adopted me. But 2009, Miss Hunter encouraged me to go for something I didn't think I was qualified to do. And that was to take care and manage the art collection owned by the Washington, D.C. city government at the D.C. Arts Commission. And so in moving into that role, I must say and give thanks to the then President Gloria Nowden and the Deputy Eris Scales, because they wanted me to incorporate BADC artists into some of the new vision opportunities that they had. And so this event is that one that was the beginning. We mounted an exhibition called Omnipresence about BADC artists in DC at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. And that was for the Congressional Black Caucus. And ever since, we've been able to do some really incredible things in partnership with BADC and the Arts Commission. And I must say that when I started at the commission, BADC had already established its presence, and it was highly respected. In all of the collections that we had, of the top works were all BADC artists. There's the City Hall art collection down at the John A. Wilson building. And then this you see in the bottom right is the DC portfolio. And it was a series of 10 prints that were created to be sold by the Arts Commission, but done in David Adamson's really world-renowned print studio. So all of these kind of opportunities to really honor the work that BADC artists and professors and educators have been doing. This was an opportunity on the left, and then the top right, you see us having an event at Howard University Gallery of Art. And it was the brainchild of Amber Robles Gordon and Akili Ron Anderson to give something back to those artists of note that make our walk in art possible. And so you see Jeff Donaldson's work. There was Elizabeth Catlett was also part of the exhibition. I believe Semi Knox might have been part of that exhibition. But one thing that I was able to do to give to BADC in that moment, and on behalf of BADC, is to obtain the mayoral decree for both Elizabeth Catlett and Richard Hunt to receive days, like their honorary day in DC.
Oh, that's great.
That's what we did in that moment. And so those individuals, the Keely Andersons, Ms. Hunter, Professor Platt, Mr. Little, and Stan Squirewell at the top, those are my BADC mentors that were the first and certainly most influential to move my artistic, because I am an artist. It's been a while since I made something, but but also as a curator, they definitely pushed me. And so you see, this was my MFA defense exhibition, and I did an exhibition, or my body of work was on go-go as a divine ritual and a divine African ritual that we have and do here in DC. And so, but you see the monumental scale, and I was experimenting because I was allowed into the most wonderful experimental space possible, and that was Michael Platt's studio on Chapin Street. And he let me take all the wall space, do anything and everything that my imagination took me to. And we both were playing around with this new material where we could adhere our images and cut them into shapes and adhere them directly onto the wall, so that they again have this spiritual presence when you walk in. It's like a stained glass, I guess, in flotation around us. But BADC also is a curatorial incubator, and as someone who had not yet curated a lot, BADC invited me to be one of their young curators for their new emerging program. And I was to formulate an exhibition that hopefully also included emerging artist talents. And so what I came up with was a group show of women, Kristen Hayes, Jamia Richmond Edwards, Amber Robles Gordon, Danielle Scruggs, 4 women, but four artists, but the 5th artist and the 5th woman being myself, because curators certainly are artists. And so this, was not only a moment for us in our careers individually, but the camaraderie that was built. The process of creating this exhibition was very organic. We would meet, pretty regularly, check in, and new works were being created based on those conversations that we would have. And I was able to get permission for Kristen Hayes to draw on the wall, because she had been at that time doing some public art chalk drawings in Panama on exterior walls in various towns and cities. And we see Amber Robles Gordon, when she was first beginning to expand on the scale of her works, and seriously incorporating a lot of those found objects, found fashion items, very feminine items that she had massive collections of. This was kind of as she began this draping work. And so we were able to suspend it, which was the first time that she was able to suspend it in 3D and have a piece that was in the round that we walked around and walked under. So you see, literally the works laid on top of one another so that we could integrate them and really show how connected we have become throughout this process. And this picture looks just like the picture that Zsudayka ended with these women, in support of one another, celebrating, an incredible showing of their creativity. And so quickly, Danielle Scruggs, she is a curator, photo editor, or she does some editing for ESPN, I understand, but she's doing really amazing photographic work between a number of cities. Kristen Hayes here in Washington, D.C., you see one of her recent exhibitions, an incredible artist, but also an art educator with the most genuine, kind spirit and heart. Jamia Richmond Edwards, whose career has really skyrocketed within the last few years. And she was very much a part of that show. I remember saying, I couldn't wait till her dresses start touching the floor, because she has these really voluminous paper dresses and outfits for these women who are her figures. So I look forward to when those trains and those billows,
Detroit.
Trail down.
From Detroit.
Yeah, from Detroit. Yes. And so Amber Robles Gordon, we were at MFA, we were at Howard together at the same time. So I was very, and I see a privilege to observe her working process and her transformation, the transformation of her work from 2D to 3D. And as a result from BADC advocacy, when the Arts Commission was lacking in really making sure that there was diverse representation within their public artists, and sometimes an obstacle that always gets placed in the way is, well, you don't have enough experience and you haven't quite done something on this scale yet, and it's a major project. So what? And Ms. Hunter, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Zsudayka Nelson and Akili Anderson and yourself all speaking to the Arts Commission and demanding that they needed to create an apprenticeship program.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that we invited them into our space. Most of the times the DC Commission would go into I guess areas of the city where they felt comfortable. Well, we found a space that they would feel comfortable, which was my house, invited the commission there and began to grill the commission about the need for apprenticeships for young Black artists so that they could get the skills to be able to work on that kind of scale there.
Yeah.
And out of that, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
No, you got it.
Okay. Well, yeah, out of that, has come some really huge commissions. This public art work in 2013 was the direct result of that advocacy, and it was installed at the Deanwood Rec Center in their library. But then it would, that style, that size, and those materials is something that she's continuing to work on and become really successful, in this art thing. So one night, I want to share something with you. One night, I think it was a year and a half or so ago, I was up late watching television and a music video by Kindred and the Family Soul came on. And then I blink and I see something familiar. So I'm going to play this and I'm going to let it play for the whole 4.5 minutes, just so that we, as watchers in a family, we're going to vibe out together and listen to the radio together.
Never been no dummy, but I'll be vulnerable with love. I trust it only, 'cause it never failed me, no. Now it's free, because I'm rich with my supply. Now join me, woman, standing right before your eyes. Welcome to my world. Welcome to my heart. Give you this love. Give you this love. Hope you'll make a brand new start, baby. Yeah. So I wanna make make this moment memorable. And you need, they can't take you from me. You're in my blood, flowing from my head down to my feet. I offer and give my all. Offer and give my all. 'Cause I'm sure that you deserve. You're sure that you deserve. Your presence is giving me life. Giving me life. To me, more than words. Welcome to my world. Welcome to my heart. Yeah. If you this love, I wanna give you this love. Make a brand new start. Make a brand new start. Need you, baby. Yeah. My world to my heart. In my heart. Give you this love. If you, yeah. Make a brand new start. Make a brand new start. Need you, babe. Need you, babe. Brand new start.
Those were some very rich images and to incorporate the visual arts in that was I guess visionary, genius, and I guess that's part of the whole story of what we're talking about today is genius and visionary. The development, the insight, the products of Black Artists of DC. Back to you, Zoma.
Well, no, I want to get back to your questioning because at this point.
Well, real quick, I want to get back to, okay, there we have audience questions. There's a couple of things that, first of all, the reason I said that about Detroit is about Jamia. Jamia did a presentation recently with me about her work and talked to me about how she was raised in Detroit and the cards that they played and the two steps and the fringes and the boots and the whole thing and how she brings Detroit. So those dresses, just the whole city vibe, the Black folk culture vibe from Detroit that she brings and imbues in these works. I have a better understanding of her work now, based upon that conversation. We do have some questions. Let me ask. Let me see if the folk. Alicia, can you all send me the question? Okay, Greg. Okay. Hi, Greg.
Oh,
If you had to imagine what utopia looked like for BADC in the future, what would that look like? Oh, and thank you, Greg. Before I also have to thank you all from BADC for this wonderful presentation. The work that you put into with all the images was just wonderful. And I know that took time and energy. So thank you very, very much for that. So, okay, I'm sorry. Back to Greg. And the utopia, what would that look like for BADC?
Well, I feel like we're creating somewhat of a utopia, because when we're thinking about utopia in the economic sense or the political sense, we're trying to find this balance where, there isn't, or there's less, at least. I guess you can't eradicate oppression completely. There's always going to be some type of system that grinds against humanity. But utopia is the perfect balanced space where we're all working together, sharing in something, if I'm creating something that you need, then we're trading and bartering something so that skills and services are going back and forth. And then so money and objects then are less of the driving force. You know, it's really us helping one another survive based on our sensitivity to human need. And that, I think, is a Black artist utopia.
I think that for me, and you know, I hate when people like dream on live and then it locks us into these dreams, but I'm going to do it to us anyway. I feel like it's so much talent and so much amazingness in this group that I'm just like, I want to go to BADC's own space one day and their own gallery one day. And I think I see us being able to incubate our own shows and incubate our own artists. And I see a BADC residency that rivals the Studio Museum residency in terms of how it develops somebody who's coming up and the opportunities and the leadership that we're able to provide for them. And I feel like, and I feel comfortable in saying that because I think that all of that is already happening. It's just a matter of like putting it all in one place. And, you know, so for me, that would be like my utopia or my vision of utopia is like us, for example, not being the token February show that everybody comes to check their diversity box, but like, no, y'all come to our gallery and you buy our work from us and we put this up and y'all don't get 40% to say that you supported somebody Black one time in the calendar year. Like, nah, you gotta come and like I feel like Aziza has really set that bar of like, no, you come to us and you come and you see our work and you see what we do because we incubate all of it ourselves and we protect everybody ourselves. And I think seeing young artists get into this industry, especially now that Black artists pop in, I think seeing young artists have protection and be able to like have these opportunities and then have people who are around them who are like, hey, whoa, you know, this is not a good look. Try this or try these people, or being able to provide a space that's safe. And I think that that's already there. I just am like, where's BADC headquarters? Like, I need a Bat Cave.
Okay. Any other questions that we have from the audience? Carlos. Hey, Carlos. I heard Daniel say that the group helped him. I want to know, for me being an artist, should I join an organization so that I may be able to grow? Is that a unanimous?
Yes.
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 But
I should also say, because it's a point that's come up a couple of times, there are people who have lived in DC and then had to move for whatever reason, and they still belong to DC and to BADC, and we will support you, you know, no matter where you are in the world. So, you know, if you have a connection to the city, you are us. Come on.
Yeah. If you're around people like you, it gives you strength.
Yeah.
You know that there are people there to help you, to guide you, to appreciate what you do. And in an organization like Black Artists of DC, you will find that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Greg. Do you have any more questions? Okay. Well, if we don't have any more audience questions, I have one last question. And that question I'm going to ask each of you. And there's other questions I know that I sent you, but I'm going to close. So if you could invite any one creative, artistic person from any time in history to now, including the current time, to dinner or to your studio, who would they be and why? Who should we start off with? Aziza.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think I would invite Miss Bryant, who was the person that began just above midtown the gallery. She was like in her late teens, I think, when she started that gallery. I wanted to know how she did that, and then the talent that came through there, how she helped to nourish them, to see that they were developed and how she supported their careers, because I mean there were some greats that came through just above Midtown.
Okay, thank you. Zoma, how about you?
Well, I wanted to be greedy and have like 5 people at the table.
Oh, I know that's right.
But I think I'm most curious about John Coltrane because he and I share a birthday. So ever since I knew what his name was, my dad was always, listen to Train on your birthday. And we always seem to have very similar ways of being, maybe. I would love to know what his voice was like as he expressed some of his thoughts. We always hear the instrument, but we rarely, if ever, hear his voice. So.
Mm-hmm. On Concrete Cowboy on Netflix, Idris Elba introduces his son to John Coltrane. Okay. And that is when they really finally, I don't want to tell you the story, but they have a very good conversation. There is a connection because of that John Coltrane song. So yes, and I know, Coltrane is just something. It's just beyond words. So what about you, Zsudayka?
If you had asked me this question even up till last year, I would have said Frida Kahlo. I love Frida Kahlo. I got a Frida tattoo. Like, I love her. But I, at this point in my artistry, want to sit down with Faith Ringgold. I want to know everything. I want to know all the no's that she heard, how she kept going. I want to know all the organizations that wouldn't let her be a part of the organization, how she kept going. I want to know what it takes for 90 years to not ever step back from the messaging of what it is that you want to create, and what it is like to, because I think a lot of us go through a process where we're painting for outside forces for a little while, if that's painting for a museum, painting for a gallery, painting to sell. And I feel like she, for the longest, has painted for herself. Mm-hmm. And I really would love to hear more about the journey of painting for yourself and saying what you want to say. And I want to know if she ever worried it wasn't going to work, and what moved her through that time. And then when it started to work, I want to know who was in her ear, like, okay, you got to bring this down some, and what it's like to be like, nah.
Who lived through that too. Because when you can't pay the bills, that's a difficult time.
Oh, Lord. How well I know.
But I know myself, and I am unwilling to do something that I don't believe in just so that I can pay the bills. And so we have gone through those times. And we ain't completely blown out of it either. But I have my integrity. And that's what model I follow. Zsudayka, I feel you the same. We want to know what that fortitude looks like, feels like, because we have it too.
Yes. And when you don't do Black jazz art, for example, because that's what's popular for a series of time, when you are like, no, I'm a fiber artist, and I know she's other things too, but I'm constantly impressed by her. And just her presence, just seeing her walk in a room, I'm just like, oh my God.
And speaking of that strong Black woman presence, so I'm going to share mine. I really kind of go back and forth, but I'm going to share a recent, what should I say, inquiry into it's with Kay Brown. Kay Brown was part of an African-American women's Black feminist group in the 60s that has not gotten the recognition that they deserve. Faith Ringgold also exhibited with that group. I was doing that research on the exhibition Black Women Rising, and part of my one of the categories is deliberate and afraid of nothing. So I've been researching. That's part of curating is you do the research, right? You be looking through the books, you look for the work, and I found some of Kay Brown's work, which I think is just really hard to find now, especially since she's deceased. But the one piece that she had was like, damn, you know, that today, damn.
Yeah.
And because I know there, you know, the Black male movement, you know, well, the Black arts movement was male dominated, right? And so the female, the womanist aspects were not as held up, not as honored, but it's time. So, K Brown.
Looked her up, and yes, I'm about to be obsessed.
Well, I hope you can find some of her work. I can't remember the name of the group, but it was a
Where we
collective.
at? It's
Where we at? There it is. Thank
fun.
you. Where we at? Mhm. So I guess we will close this out with your comment, Mr. Brooking, on who you would invite to dinner.
Okay. When Africans were forced into slavery and brought to America, I'm sure some of those people were artists. I would like to speak to one and ask if they had a way to use their art to tell their story in the Americas. Do art pieces still exist that speak of that time? How did they use their art to help them withstand that pain?
I don't have nothing else to say.
Ashe.
I know it. That was
Ashe.
fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. And thank you everybody that was on this talk this evening. Also want to thank again the people that have also the past presidents, Russell and Amber and Stan and Aziza and all of the people, Gloria.
Yes, Gloria.
All of the people, just
Juliet Madison.
Juliet Madison, all of the folk that have watered, as you say, just nurtured to the place where y'all can take off now.
That's
I mean, y'all took off. We took off, but y'all can fly now.
Thank you.
That's all I can say.
Thank
you,
you.
everybody, for being with us tonight.
Thank you for hosting this, Carol. I feel like it is such an honor for the work that you brought to the organization and bringing the organization to the 501c3 and the things that is going to enable Zoma and I to do. And for you to, as a former president, then host the space for the incoming and for the elders to all speak is just, you are constantly an example of who we shall strive to be.
Oh my goodness.
Much appreciated.
I have to thank you so much. And again, I just mirror it all back to you all. I mirror it all back to you all. I am a mirror of you all. So again, thank you so much. So I also want to acknowledge, I get a little shook up, you know, I have to learn how to take compliments, right? We have the staff for Busboys and Poets, Alicia Bird and Patrick, who've been handling all this information. There are bios. I believe the bios are going to be put up afterwards. They said they were a little bit long and we're unable to paste all of them, but the contact information will also paste on Facebook and on YouTube so that anyone has questions or want to follow up with Zoma or Zsudayka or Daniel or Aziza, because they're great people to talk with and they have the time, or they will take the time to talk with you about your sincere interest. You know, that's the thing, that they will take the time to help you with your sincere interest. So, all right, y'all, we're out. Until next time, 2 weeks from now, I'm just so grateful to have been here tonight and share. And they say it's on y'all now.
Good night. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.